Hello, my name is Progressive Alaba Awolaja. I'm a certified internal auditor and a charter certified fraud investigator in Nigeria. I am the internal audit fundamentalist. You're welcome to this episode on certified internal auditor exam tips. We are going to be talking about some certified internal auditor exam tips and challenges and tips that will help many CIA candidates to pass the exam. Um, Making videos has been an issue for me because you want to ensure you have quality video, you have to edit, and it's been a challenging thing for me. So I've not been making a lot of videos, but I want the viewers to understand that they should take me the way I am today because I have something to give, and I don't mind how I give it. The most important thing from this episode is you get the valuable insights from my discussion. And I'm also not used to having to program what I'm going to say. So this is the best way you can find Progressive Alabaula to speak his mind the way it is in his mind. So I'm not going to be editing anything in this video other than to pause to bring something up. So you are all welcome to this episode once again. Try as much as possible to subscribe to this YouTube channel, Internal Audit Fundamentalist, for more updates and more YouTube or insightful videos or valuable tips on internal auditing. So let's get started. Now, the first thing we want to discuss is very simple. And I don't know how to say it. Don't feel bad about the way I say it. This is about people who failed the certified internal auditor exam. And this is what I'm going to say. You understand internal auditing. You have X number of years of experience in internal auditing. However, you failed the CIA Part 1 test. And the CIA Part 1 test is the basics of internal auditing or fundamentals of internal auditing. And it is now called Internal Audit Fundamentals based on the new CIA syllabus. It is no more essentials of internal auditing. So why did you fail? Now, the first thing I'm going to tell you, the reason why you failed the CIA Part 1 exam is because, fine, you have been practicing internal auditing. However, you do not have the knowledge and experience according to the syllabus, which is based on the Institute of Internal Auditors International Professional Practices Framework. Regardless of your X number of years in internal auditing, if you do not have knowledge and experience based on the IIA's International Professional Practices Framework, you cannot pass the CIA exam. That is a fact. Okay, the next one is that, fine, you have read the Certified Internal Auditor exam review materials. You have read it, no problem. But you didn't still pass the exam. The reason is because, fine, you read the book, but you are still missing the IPPF. When you look at the CIA review materials, you will get a lot of information. However, the information in the CIA materials, most especially the standards, are summarized. You still need the details of the IIA standards. The standards is just a component of the IIA's International Professional Practices Framework. So you have read the review material. Maybe let's say you didn't buy it, or you bought it, or somebody gave it to you, and you thought that is enough for you to pass the exam. Let me tell you the truth, it may not be enough. Another area that I also want to mention is that, fine, you have X number of years in internal auditing. You also read the review materials and you read the standards. Why did you fail? So this is what could happen. You have read everything that you thought you need to read. The first thing I would say, maybe what you read is not still enough. But that's not it in most cases. What happens is that people read the review materials, they read the standards, and they have experienced X number of years in internal auditing, but they still fail. The problem is this: most times CIA candidates have difficulty in connecting what they read with scenario-based question. That is it. The challenge could be you have read the review materials, you took the standards alone, you read it, yet you failed. However, my concern based on my own experience is that maybe you didn't connect the things that you read, the review materials, your experience, if your experience is in line with the IIA. Because if your experience, the X number of years is still not in line with the IIA, whatsoever you read in the review material and also what you read in the standard, you will be confused. Let me just put it that way. There will be confusion because once you encountered a scenario that suits to areas of your experience which may not be in line with the IPPF, then you have to follow that option. So you have read your review material, you have read the standards, and you have X number of years in internal auditing, but you failed because you have been unable to connect the things that you read, the standards you read, the content of the review material with your, let's assume that you have IPPF experience. You have been unable to connect them and to make good decision in about just 1 minute in the exam. Let's go. Okay, another aspect is this: you are able to connect everything. What you read in the review material, your experience, the standards, which is a component of the IPPF, you have been able to connect them together. But you still failed. Why? Now, this is one aspect of internal auditing that people don't know. Internal auditing is a very broad discipline. For you to make it in CIA, you have to first acknowledge that it is very broad. For example, you could see a question in the CIA exam asking for, let's say, internal auditing is auditing the goal of an organization. What are the things that internal auditing needs to use as the best approach for internal auditing to use to audit, something like that. But you know that you are auditing based on the goal of a department or the goal of an activity or the goal of a business unit. However, regardless of whatever you find in internal auditing context, don't forget that there are some principles of management, the context of management that exists in internal auditing that will not change. For example, when you talk about auditing goals, you still have to talk about smart, what do we call it? Smart method or whatever they call it. These are specific measurable, is it specific, measurable, actionable or something like that? You still have to connect them in internal auditing too. So for people who are versatile in management science or studies, I'm not saying accounting now, maybe you have done your MBA and you have a general idea about how things are done properly. I mean, general idea of how things are done properly. Then that area could still help you in CIA because they are the same. So what I always tell people is that this is where your broad knowledge of organization, your broad knowledge of internal auditing based on the IPPF will be tested. That is one aspect. So let's move on. Okay, we have many problems. How do we solve all of these problems? How do we solve them? Now, this is my approach about the CIA, and this is what I'm giving you. When you are taking the CIA, if you are not, if you do not have broad experience about the IIA's IPPF, no problem. I learned it from A to C. Anybody can learn it. But the problem of CIA candidates is that they are always rushing. They are not ready to learn. they believe, is it not internal auditing that I've been doing for many years? No problem. So what you need to do is, let's assume you do not have IPPF experience. It's so easy. The first thing you need to do is take the IIA standards. In the 2017 version of the IPPF, we used to call it International Professional Practices Framework. No. We used to call the standards International Standards for the Professional Practice of Internal Auditing. But now, according to the 2024 IPPF, we are now calling it Global Internal Audit Standards. Since we will switch into the new syllabus by 28th of May this year, what do you need to do? First, study the Global Internal Audit Standards. There is a condensed version of the Global Internal Audit Standards. Don't take it. Just take the version that is comprehensive. You can learn all of these things. Just start to learn it from A to Z. It is easy to understand. First, learn the standards, then adopt the standards. Accept that that is how internal auditing should be. Because most times, the problem of CIA candidates is that fine, they will read the standards, they do not believe in it because the way they are practicing is different from what they are seeing in the standards. So what you need to do is, first, read it, accept it that this is how internal auditing should be practiced globally. That is one aspect. Now, I always tell CI candidate that if you study the standards very well, it is now called Global Internal Audit Standards, you have conquered at least 60% of the exam by learning the standards. So you now have one advantage. Before now, we used to have the standards separated from the implementation guides. Before now, many CI candidates has been following me, my own CI candidates. We will give them the standards, then we give them implementation standards. So, but later, what we did was to bring the standards in an Excel worksheet. The standard here, the implementation guides in one column. So if you are reading the standards, you will read the column. You will read the implementation guides, the conformance requirements. You read it. But now, the new Global Internal Audit Standards has everything in the same document. It means that when you read the mandatory requirements, then you will read the, what do you call it? You will read the consideration for implementation. Then you read examples for conformance in one document. So with that, you're already learning internal audit best practices. So if you can read the standards alone, let's say my advice for you is don't worry about the review material that you bought or somebody gave you. Don't worry. Focus on the standards. Imbibe the standards first. Understand it. Accept it. After you have understood it as the best practices or requirements for internal auditing, then we can talk about the next one. So once you have been able to learn the standards, to imbibe the requirements of the standards, the next thing you will do is to pick up a review material. IIA now has with Becca, there's a collaboration between IIA and Becca, so there's a review material from the two organizations, one material. Then we have GLEM. GLEM is very popular. We have OC International. We have Power Resources Corporation PLC. We have Surgeons, and we have many of them. We have Wiley or something like that. We have many of them. So you can pick the best for you. But one thing you will notice when you begin to read the review material is that you will now notice that the things that you have already read in the standards and the implementation guides, consideration for implementation now in the new GIS, and examples for conformance or something like that, you now discover that there are these things that will be treated in the review material.